After receiving DNA test kit results, this family changed forever. People who are curious about their heritage often turn to DNA test kits like the one from 23andMe and Ancestry for answers. All they have to do is place some of their saliva into a tube and send the sample to a lab to have it analyzed. Within weeks, they'll get information on their family tree and even find out what part of their world their ancestors came from. But for some folks, these DNA test kit results didn't just provide information, they changed their entire lives. Some people have been able to reconnect with their biological parents or even meet their long-lost twins for the first time. But not all of people who'd taken DNA tests had happy stories to share after seeing the results. 72-year-old Denise Junsky always felt like an oddball because she was the only blonde in a family of redheads and brunettes. But hair color wasn't the only thing about her that set her apart from the rest of her loved ones. Junsky recalled that her siblings were always full of energy and excelled in sports or had some sort of athletic talent, and she had none of these things. But she couldn't quite put her finger on why she was different, so she decided to look for answers. Junsky took a 23andMe Ancestry test, and what she found when she got the results was shocking. According to the test, she didn't share the same genes as the rest of her family. She assumed the lab made a mistake, so she took another test. The second DNA test results were the same as the first. It showed her DNA wasn't the same as her family's. There was no way that 23andMe could have made a mistake twice, and then a shocking thought came across her mind. The test indicated a woman who was younger than she was on the suggested list of relatives, so she contacted a woman in her 70s named Linda Jordans and had her take a DNA test too. But what would that reveal? Like Junsky, Jordans was also an oddball in her family. She was born in 1945 in the same Minnesota hospital at the same time Junsky was born, so when the DNA kit arrived, she took it and waited in anticipation for the results. Turns out Junsky and Jordans weren't blood related, but they'd been switched at birth, so basically they'd been living with each other's families for their entire lives. It's a crazy thing, Junsky stated. People just automatically assume they got the right family. The two 72-year-olds bonded over the switcheroo and eventually arranged for a family reunion and invited both families. This allowed everyone to meet their actual biological relatives, but this wasn't the first time 23andMe revealed shocking truths about a family. Most families gift each other sweaters, power tools, and kitchen appliances during the holiday season, where Reddit user Snorkel721 decided to gift his parents, two sisters, and brother some DNA kits for the holidays, so they could all learn more about their heritage. But that upset his mother, which made him wonder if she'd been hiding something. Their mom freaked out when she saw what everyone got for Christmas. Don't use those, she warned, they're packed with dangerous chemicals. But the kids knew better and they informed their mother there were no dangerous chemicals in the DNA kits. The kids were determined to take the test, but she couldn't tell them exactly why she didn't want them to. So she kept trying to persuade them to skip the test. She knew there was a possibility it would all come out one day, and sadly for her, the day had come. With no time to lose, the mom suggested that only one of the kids take the DNA test. She told them that since they all shared the same DNA, they only needed one kit to map out their genealogy. But there was a problem. The kids had considered their mom's request, but they all had extra DNA test kits. What were they going to do with the extra ones? The mom suggested they sell the other unopened kits, and this led to a heated discussion. None of the kids really knew why mom was so against the test, but then they watched as their parents went downstairs and started fighting. Had the kids forced mom to reveal a terrible secret? Mom had no other choice to confess, so she explained to everyone that she had married a man long ago and had a kid, which was the sibling's eldest sister. Sadly, her husband passed away and she never told anyone, not even the kid's big sister, the truth. The man they knew as their father was once a good friend of their mom. In fact, he'd helped her get over her grief, and in the process, the two of them fell in love, got married, and had children. Mom had hoped to take her secret with her to the grave, but the DNA kits had given her no other option than to tell the kids about her first husband. Fortunately, they were all quite understanding, but there was another family who was also highly affected by a gifted 23andMe kit. Janelle Rodriguez was only 6 years old when she lost her biological parents in a horrific car accident. To make things worse, she had no other family she could be placed with as far as they knew, so she wound up in the adoption system. Rodriguez was eventually adopted by an Arizona family and lived a normal, happy childhood. 30 years later, she decided to buy herself a DNA kit to see if she had any surviving biological family members she didn't know about. Meanwhile, Rachel Saucedo from Fullerton, California had her own DNA tested using a 23andMe kit around the same time as Rodriguez. When Saucedo got her results, they suggested she was related to Rodriguez, but she never heard of her before. Saucedo was so confused by the results that she decided to get some clarification from her uncle, Frank Granados. After asking him some questions, 6 words escaped her lips that sent shivers down Granados' entire body. "I think I found your daughter," she explained to her uncle, and she was right. Granados was just a teenager when he gave up a baby for adoption. This came as quite a shock to Saucedo, but not as much as it did to Rodriguez. Rodriguez's adoptive parents knew about Frank Granados being her biological father, but they were afraid that telling her the truth would make her adoptive daughter feel like she'd been abandoned, so they told her that Granados had passed away. Naturally, Rodriguez had a bunch of questions she needed answers to, and the only man who had them was her biological father, Frank Granados. So she gave him a call and prepared to bombard him with questions. Once I asked him questions that I had in my heart and my mind my whole life and wanted to know the truth from his side, Rodriguez said. I could feel deep in my heart he wasn't lying to me. But would she feel that way about him when they met? There were a million reasons why she could have chosen to back out and refuse to meet him. What if he wasn't a good guy after all? What if he told her more things about why he gave her up that would end up breaking her heart? But she had to know for sure, so she arranged to meet him and he accepted. I could feel his true love, Rodriguez said about the way she felt after they met. It was so natural. It was like he was only gone for a second, like he went on vacation or something. There wasn't a day that went by that Rodriguez and Granados didn't talk. They even spent Thanksgiving together and went on a trip to Knott's Berry Farm. But not everyone has had such a positive experience after using a DNA test kit. Another Reddit user bought a DNA test kit that she and her dad were eager to use. Unfortunately, her mom could have cared less about her family tree, so she opted to sit this one out. But that was okay because the user was happy to share this experience with her dad. The results, however, weren't what they expected. When the test results came back, both father and daughter were shocked. According to the test, the Reddit user had Scandinavian, French, and German ancestry, but her father's DNA only contained British ancestry. But this wasn't the only inconsistency. According to the DNA test, they weren't father and daughter, but the results did point her in the direction of another man being her father. But unfortunately, it was someone whose name she hadn't heard of. The Redditor was upset, but not nearly as much as the man who raised her. He was so angry that he got into a heated argument with his wife, and that's when Mom was forced to admit she'd slept with someone else while they were married. Dad decided he could no longer be with the woman he thought he'd been loyal all these years, so he ended up divorcing her. But he couldn't help but wonder if he was the biological father of his other children, and so he undoubtedly had their DNA tested as well. But this next Redditor didn't have it easy either. Redditor user Zambookster had been ill for quite some time. She'd seen medical specialists like endocrinologists and cardiologists for more than 6 years to figure out why she was always suffering from joint pain and experiencing unexplained tiredness. But no one had any answers for her. Doctors had no answers, but she figured that perhaps her DNA would give an answer to what was making her suffer so much. So one fateful Black Friday, she ordered herself an Ancestry kit online because they were half-priced. Her test results didn't reveal a long-lost relative or dark family secret, but it did show that she was suffering from a homogeneous variant for HFE-related hereditary hemochromatosis. This condition builds iron in your organs over a period of time. Thanks to the results she'd gotten from the DNA test kit, she was able to tell the doctors what to look for. So she had a blood test taken for hereditary hemochromatosis and it was confirmed. But had she not ordered the test kit, she would have never known what she had, and she could have eventually died from her condition. Another woman had been adopted when she was a baby, and as she got older, she wanted to know more about her ancestry. But the only thing she knew about her biological mother was that she'd been too young to raise a child. So the woman decided to order herself an Ancestry kit, and the results gave her more than she ever expected to find. Turns out she had a twin sister living only a state away according to the test results. So she reached out to her through social media and the two clicked right away. But the DNA test kit had a more life-altering result for another woman. A 40-year-old woman was completely beside herself after she took a 23andMe test and got the results. According to the test, she had a potential DNA relative, but the real mystery was that it suggested it was her son, except she'd never given birth to him. She was completely confused by the test results. When a woman gets pregnant, it's pretty hard to ignore. Labor pains, nausea, and cramps are pretty memorable, and suddenly she recalled she donated her eggs to pay for college. Curious, she decided to search for her son's name on Facebook, and what she found was a 20-year-old man who looked a lot like her. She also learned that he lived in the city where she donated her eggs, so obviously her theory of how she ended up with a son seemed plausible. She wasn't sure if the young man had been conceived from one of her egg cells, but it made her happy knowing that she had helped bring life into the world. But this wasn't the only time that DNA test kits revealed egg donors. Two women who were very best friends decided one day they wanted children, but one of the women had no interest in marriage and the other woman was gay and wanted nothing to do with men. So together they came up with a unique plan to have kids. To ensure their daughters would be half-sisters, they decided to use the same sperm donor. That was the initial plan anyway, but a couple years down the road, the first woman deviated from their intended plan. The first woman met a guy, fell in love, and married him. She then went on to tell her biological daughter the man she called dad was her biological dad, and that her half-sister was nothing more than a very good friend. When the daughter was old enough, she ordered herself a 23andMe test, and when she got the results, she learned the truth about her best friend being her half-sister. But the news didn't sit well with her. In fact, it left her very shocked. Angered by the truth, the young woman went on Reddit and wrote, "My father's not the man who raised me. My mom told me they were planning on telling me eventually, but I sincerely doubt that's the case. Such selfish people. I hate my mom and dad for lying to me, but it could have been much worse." Reddit user _Muffin loved her boyfriend and they had a few things in common. We both come from Mexican-born parents from different states, Durango, Nayarit, Zacatecas, and Guanajuato, she wrote on Reddit. But there was more to their story than they realized after she used a DNA kit. According to the 23andMe kit, she and her boyfriend shared 0.27 of their DNA, which made them fourth cousins. Obviously, this news put a damper on their relationship, but all she added on the site was, "Now we're wondering what sides of our family are related."